Good day. My name is Mrs. Pinar. This is your assignment and exam-based presentation. It's for early childhood prep math, EPM 12. Right, let's start. What or how would I explain measurement, experience and activities to my early childhood learner? Let's start off with activities. Now, activities simply means something that we should do practically. The teacher demonstrates and the learner does after the teacher. So activities, take note, is something that we do practically. Now when it comes to conservation, first, what is conservation? Conservation of measurement is based on the notation or the notion that the length of a piece of string doesn't change if you curl it into a circle. My example here in front of me. This is how you demonstrate to the child. I have 3 pieces of string. If you ask your child which of these ones are the longest and which one are the shortest, immediately the child will say the curled one is shorter than the slightly curled one, and the longest piece of string, the child will tell you, is the one that is straightened. So conservation simply tells my child that even if the string is curled, it has the same length. So the length of a piece of string does not change when it is curled. This is conservation. Another example of conservation is the amount of water in a jug or in any container does not change if you pour it into a much taller or wider container. My example that I have here, I have a glass of water and I have a much bigger container. Now, let me just change here. For my child, if I pour the water in a much bigger container, the child will not realize that the amount of water that comes from the much bigger container than the one from the taller container is exactly the same. So I should practically show my child that the amount of water does not change if the container changes. That is capacity. Same. A piece of dough does not change when I have it in a ball or in a sausage. The weight, this has to do with mass. The weight does not change because it is exactly the same size. The dough is exactly the same size whether it's in a ball or whether it is in a sausage. So here, the media that I have to use to show my learner is rope, water, clay, or any other practical example that you can use. Right, when it comes to non-standard and standard measurement of length. So the terms non-standard and standard are often used when describing learning outcomes for measurement. Measuring with standard units mean measuring with millimeters, centimeters or meters. And here we use rulers or any other measuring devices. So measuring with non-standard units means measuring with things like blocks, pencils, hands, feet, etc. For example, to measure this piece of paper, the length of this piece of paper, I can use blocks, 1, 2, 3 blocks and a bit, or I can make use of my hand span, 1, 2, or then a pen or a pencil or anything that the child may use or have in front of him. So the child make use of non-standard means of measuring. During early childhood education, we do not use measuring instruments. So the child do not use measuring units like millimeters, centimeters. The child can simply say, my paper is 2 blocks or 3 blocks long, or 4 pencils, or whatever. So the child make use of non-standard measuring instruments. As long as the items that we use are of the same length, like for example identical blocks or the same length of pencils, everything that is suitable to measure with. Right. How do we understand sorting and classifying objects when we classify them into 4 groups? The 4 groups that we can classify objects in, the 4 groups are color, size, shape, or length. Here, matching is important because matching mainly involves one-to-one correspondence. And here we can make use of the game memory. And that is a good way to teach our young children about matching. Right? So classifying and sorting involves finding things that are the same or alike and grouping them by specific traits. For example, the group of animals in a picture can be grouped based on their color or type of animal. You can have young children classify anything, including blocks, leaves, plates, or toy cars. What I have here are different shapes, different objects of different sizes. So I can have any object. If you can see here, I have even collected some bottle caps. So the learner, or I can give the learner any kind of object that I can get my hands on. So for instance, for this activity, I can sort these objects into color, according to size, according to shape, and according to length. Now let's start off with color. So if I ask my learner to collect blue. So I show my learner one object that I identify as blue. So I will ask my learner to collect or to gather or to group rather all the objects with the same color. So the learner will just now look at the color of the objects and find objects that has the color blue. So now shape doesn't matter, size doesn't matter, and length doesn't matter. I only concentrate on color. So whatever color I ask my learner to group. And obviously here I will make use of other activities also. Say for instance I decide that this week I will teach them the color blue. So on Monday I can ask them to bring something with the color blue from home, or I can even ask them to dress up on Monday in the color blue or red or whichever color I choose to teach them for the week. So everything that I do for the week will be about the color blue. I will find stories about the color blue or poems about the color blue. So at the end of my week, my learners should be able to identify blue in any groups of objects. I will go ahead when it comes to shape, for instance. So now I ask them to find all the circular shapes. So now all the shapes that is in a circle, so now color won't matter, but all the objects that is round or in a circular shape, I will put together. I will group them together. So now it's all about shape. I'm going to teach them the shape. Whatever shape I prefer to do, I will show them. It comes to size. Now, again, it has to do with the size. So shape and shape won't matter. Color won't matter as long as it's of the same size. If something is of the same size, I will group them together. The same goes when I find things of the same length. Let me clean my space here. Things of the same length, I will group together. So now color or shape will not matter, but length. So all these activities should be done separately, and it should be done for a long period of time so that the learner can grasp the concept. Right. So once they have classified items, learners can now compare the items. Compare the items further to learn more specific similarities and differences between items, both within and between matched groups. Sets are simply a collection of things that have been classified together because they have something in common. Whether it is the shape, the size, the length or the color. Continuing, what's the difference between rote counting and rational counting? Rote counting is simply reciting the sequences of number names. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Children have not learned this verbal sequence. Rather, children who have not learned this verbal sequence will not be able to count, but learning the sequence of number names or rote counting does not ensure that children can count with accuracy. What do we understand here? Rote counting. A child even from 3-4 years old can count up to 10, maybe up to 20, but the child does not necessarily know how many it is. So the child can count up to 10 verbally because they are only reciting, but they do not know how many a certain number of items are. Whereas rational counting here, children need to coordinate by touching when they verbally count. So for instance, my example here is my egg box that I have colored. So with this egg box, I can do a lot of activities. I can do colors, I can do counting, and I can do sorting. So as the learner take the objects and put it into a certain color, they can count. So now the learner has found that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items went into the red color and 1, 2, 3 went into the green color. So rational counting simply means now the learner put a amount to a number. Each object has a number, one-to-one correspondence. So one-to-one correspondence for the counting sequence is a skill that must be taught. A basic understanding of accurate counting and one-to-one correspondence is the foundation for rational counting. Some other activities to practice counting. Recite nursery rhymes and songs that includes counting. On the example there we have 2 little dicky birds. There are many. 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4. Those are nursery rhymes that I can do in my class that will practice counting. Count as you and the learners put away their toys together. All these objects that we have here, when we have to pack it away after the day's lesson, count. Let the learner count these as we put the toys away together. Sing rhyming number songs. There are all sorts of number songs that you can find online and sing with the children. Use your hands to indicate numbers visually. Use your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they demonstrate after you. So while you say or sing a number, use the items or fingers to provide a visual indication of how many. Facilitate activities that include numbers. Use a dry erase board or sidewalk chalk to draw a series of dots in a recognizable shape, such as a circle. What do we mean by that? In front of you, on a blank piece of paper, you can draw a circle. You can draw dots. You number the dots. And now you ask your child to do dot to dot by practicing the number. So the child should use 1, go to 2, go to 3, go to 4. And they will enjoy it if your picture or if your numbers makes a nice picture for them, and they can even color the picture. So guide them towards the dot to dot numbering. What are classification skills? Teaching young children how to match, classify, and measure is an important part of developing early math skills, because these skills help children identify and describe relationships between items. If activities involving observation and classification have been overlooked simply because the important wasn't obvious, you may find yourself filling in gaps with older children who are having difficulty moving from simple recall and summarization to interpretation of information. What we are saying here is, if you skip some of these things that is important in math, your child might have difficulty in math as they go along further in their school career. So spending time on these activities when children are young and eager to learn can pay off later by increasing their ability to make connections in order to draw logical conclusions and make predictions. All these things that we do in our early childhood classes are very important. Right. What is number sense? Quantification, that means the knowledge of specific quantities. Also, number identification, meaning naming numbers. They have to know that the numbers, this is a number 5, this is a number 4, this is number 1. They have to be able to identify numbers. Counting with one-to-one correspondence, meaning each number corresponds to a specific quantity. 1, 2, 3, like the egg box and the bottle caps that I've shown you. That is one-to-one correspondence. Composing numbers, simple addition. When we add numbers together is composing numbers, and decomposing numbers are subtraction. When we decompose numbers, we subtract numbers. When we add numbers, we compose numbers. Now, how do I teach my child color? When you show something, say it is a red balloon, use the word color together with the name of the object. This is a red pen or red cookie. This is a red circle. This is a red bottle cap. Say the color and show the learner. So instead of just saying this is red, it's better to say this is a balloon and its color is red. This is a bottle cap and its color is red. When you are teaching children about different colors, remember that receptive language comes before expressive language. Children will be able to point out the right color long before they can say its name. It is better to dedicate time to each color separately, having a red week or a blue week, like I explained earlier. So get the children to dress in red clothes for your red week. Use red plates and cups. Let the children cut out red paper, anything that has to do with red for a whole week. So spend time so that the child can grasp these concepts well. Skill of seriation. Seriation can be defined as the ability to arrange objects in order by size. Order by size. So I give the child a few objects and I ask the child to order my objects by size. So there I have a few objects. So the child should be able to know bigger to smallest or smaller to biggest. So this is simply what seriation is. The ability to arrange objects in order by size. Seriation is a mathematical concept that involves organizing or ordering things in a logical way. Arranging objects in order by size, location or position. Position, this one is first, this one is last. When it's from the biggest to smallest, first, last. From smallest to bigger, first, last. Seriation becomes more natural as children enter early childhood education centers or schools. The development of seriation skills is a step-by-step process. As learners grow and develop, their ability to seriate will always develop. How do I teach patterns? Notice a pattern on the child's clothing. Look, you have on stripes today. Yellow, red, blue, whatever. So make the child aware of certain patterns, even on their clothing. Make a pattern with toys. We love to make patterns with Duplo Legos, or making patterns with toys or vehicles, or even color. For instance, here I have a few counters. So I can make a pattern and ask the child to continue. Say for instance, I have 2 blue, 1 yellow, 2 red, 1 green. So now I continue and I ask my child what should be next. This is also a pattern. So the child should know what is next. Right? So these are patterns. So this is how I teach my child patterns practically, or with toys, or with whatever shapes, or with blocks. Even making a pattern by doing something. Let's make a pattern with how we move. So we jump, we step, we jump, we step. It's also how I teach patterns to my learner. Right. Introducing properties of triangles. Properties of triangles. All 3 of these triangles have a different size, but they have exactly the same properties. What are the properties? So, picture books are a great way to introduce concepts to preschool learners. If you are teaching shapes, books offer a wonderful way to show what a triangle is to early childhood learners. So before you read the book, draw a picture of a triangle. On a whiteboard, or show a large triangle shape, and now we discuss the properties. Right. 4 triangles I have. What do they have in common? And the child should be able to tell you that they see that each of these objects in front of them have 3 sides as well as 3 angles or 3 corners, like they will tell you. So you show the child, and the child first identify the properties that are the same before you start reading the books. So you can discuss the number of sides it has, the number of angles, or any other things that triangles resembles. Then use one or more of the following books to reinforce the concept of what a triangle for preschool children is in the classroom, while showing a variety of examples of the shape. On my picture, I have a road mark, I have a piece of pizza, and I have just a picture of a triangle. So as a teacher, you can improvise anything that you know that resembles a triangle. Right. Teaching numbers using the concrete, pictorial, abstract approach. CPA. Concrete meaning the real thing, the real object. Pictorial just means pictures, and abstract is now the number, so the learner sees the number and the learner must now know how many a certain number is. So in front of us we have the apples, 5 apples as concrete. The child see the 5 apples. I have the 5 apples in front of me, or the 5 counters, or the 5 bottle caps, whatever you can have, you can get hold on of. Then it moves a little bit further to pictorial. Now I can only show my child a picture of 5 apples, and the child should be able to know it is 5 because now the child, they have seen the concrete, the real objects. Now the child sees the picture, and then the child moves now to the abstract, where the child only see the number and have a vision of how many, because he has seen it, the real thing, he has seen a picture, and now the child knows how many 5 objects are. Importance of identifying shape. Why do I think my child needs to identify a shape? Why does my child need to know what a circle or a square or a triangle is? This improves communication. It greater creative skills for the child. They sort objects easier. Pre-reading and writing skills. Drawing skills. Letters contain lots of different shapes and geometry. That is why shapes are important to be able to identify. Right. Abilities involving hand-eye coordination during the preschool period. During the school period, hand-eye coordination progresses to the point of near independence at self-care activities. So a 4-year-old is learning to handle eating utensils well and button even small buttons. 4-year-olds can also handle a pencil completely, copy geometric shapes and letters, and use scissors. By the age of 5, a child's hand-eye coordination appears quite advanced, although it will continue to be fine-tuned for several more years. He approaches, grasps, and releases objects with precision and accuracy. Right. He may use the same toys as preschoolers, but he manipulates them with greater skill and purpose, and can complete a familiar jigsaw puzzle with lightning speed. An important milestone in hand-eye progress at this stage is the child's ability to tie his own shoelaces. The importance of sequencing. Why should the child be able to do sequencing? Sequencing is understanding how a series of objects, events, and time occur in a specific and logical order. This is very important. This is a very important concept for preschool children to develop, as it allows children to recognize patterns that make the world more understandable and predictable. However, it is also a very abstract concept and takes a lot of practice to master. Just one example that I can think of now is, if you let your child bring pictures of themselves to class from where they were small to up to what their age is now, and now the child put the age of himself in a chronological order. This is sequencing. He knows he started, this is his birth, he started to crawl, to walk, and so this is how we practice sequencing, so that the child can see the chronological order of things. Right, sorting rough and smooth objects using a rock or stone discovery box. Firstly, the teacher would Engage the learners by showing them the rock collection and asking them to tell him or her what they notice about the rocks. First, the teachers show them, so they only look at the box of stone. Now this will encourage them to have a simple conversation, and this will gain their interest about the rock discovery box. Then the teacher would let their learners sort the rocks according to whether they are smooth or rough. So they have looked at the stones, they have talked about the stones, the differences that they see. Now they are going to touch, and now they are going to classify them according to rough or smooth. Here, the teacher introduced the word texture. So when they feel, the teacher introduced the word texture. This is how the rock feels in your hand. Learners can experiment and talk about why they feel each rock is a certain texture. This is why it's important to have this discovery box in your class. It has to do with texture. One-to-one correspondence. This is to demonstrate when a child relates the counting to specific individual items. So touching each item only once as the child recites the counting sequence illustrates this concept. One-to-one. I've said it previously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the learner touch each object just once as he counts. So this is what we call one-to-one correspondence. As toddlers have experience with authentic hands-on learning and with counting and sharing, they begin to develop the concept of one-to-one correspondence. When distributing a snack, for example, toddlers can give each child one mini muffin or one orange section. In this way, they are learning to relate to the notation of one to each person. One for you, one for you, one for you, and one for me. So you can have a bag of sweets in your class and ask one of the learners to hand each learner a sweet. So this is one-to-one, and they count 1, 2, 3, one-on-one, one-to-one correspondence. What is the importance of spatial vocabulary in mathematics? The knowledge of object categories and attributes allows learners to mentally and physically organize things in their world. Spatial awareness and spatial relations allow learners to locate objects and navigate successfully in their environments. Using spatial language enables children to express their needs and concerns. For example, "Oh no, Mama, Teddy's under the bed," and describe and discuss the world around them. If you put the triangles together, they make a square. Let's make a square. So 2 triangles make a square. 2, 3, 4. And this is how they can develop their vocabulary in mathematics. Activities that you can do on how to teach the spatial relationship terms of inside and outside. As a teacher, what activities can you do? Place Simon Says. With masking tape, place a circle on the floor. We draw a circle on the floor. Begin by standing inside the circle. Tell the children that you are inside the circle. Now you step outside the circle, telling the children that you are now outside the circle. So you make a circle, be inside and tell them I'm inside the circle. Jump out or step out and say I'm outside the circle. Repeat by having one or two learners stand in the circle. Tell them they are inside. Tell them to step out of the circle and tell them they are outside the circle. Tell them to play Simon Says and tell you to get inside or outside. Now they are going to tell you what to do. Do as they instruct and move in or out the circle as they tell you to do. Now the roles reverse and you can say Simon Says and you can ask them to go inside or outside. So after that, they will know the concept inside and outside. Teaching the method, the meaning of hot and cold. Children know if something is hot or cold because from an early age, they are told not to touch a hot stove and to wear a coat when it's cold outside. This understanding of temperature is a good starting point to teach the difference in temperature. Discuss home safety when it comes to hot temperatures. Discuss things that are dangerous, such as hot stoves and fireplaces. Talk about how many food items are baked at high temperatures, such as pies and cakes. Show the learners a picture of a fireplace or a fire. What is this? What do you know about fire? Next, show the learners a picture of an ice cube. What is this? What do you know about the ice cube? Put the two pictures side by side. What are the differences of these two items? Today we will learn about hot and cold. Good luck. You got this. Thank you.